Hey everyone, this is Julian from the Ascent Festival. We recently caught up with Matt Lofts, who's a youth pastor at a live hike in Lincoln over some of the Lincoln Alive campuses. And he was good enough to record this session for us a third time after our live stream failed. And so we hope this blesses you. This is on pastoring from a distance. Bless you guys. So we're back again.
Amazing.
Hello.
Julian, this is Libby, and we're joined by the wonderful Matt Lofts.
Hello, guys. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us some time as well. I know people have got a lot of time on their hands, but at the same time, I don't know about you, I feel busier now than I've ever been.
Yeah, I am. I'm still teaching the same hours as I was before. I'm still doing the youth work I was before. So it's, it just feels a bit more mental than ever, really, I guess. But it's all good fun.
Are you going in for school sessions, or are you staggering?
So I teach primary 2.5 days a week, so I'm doing that as normal. And then I'm not in secondary for like youth work stuff, but I'm just doing all the church-based stuff, managing sort of the youth work and connecting with our young people.
That's an incredible task in itself. Just tell us briefly a little bit about your role as youth pastor for Alive.
Yeah, so pre sort of lockdown COVID-19, my role was specifically within the Highcombe location of Alive. So Alive is one church with loads of locations. Many locations is the official wording.
Yeah, get that right.
Yeah, I know, right? So I am focused on the sort of the young people at Highcombe, but we as youth pastors sort of work really close together. So we actually meet at Alive together with a couple of our locations, and we work sort of cooperatively together, sort of building a ministry within the city. And as part of that, one of my roles is with something called Forever. So Forever is our unity event, which it's not really a live event, although I live facilitate it through myself and Nick. But the aspect of that is, the idea is that we want to bring young people from youth ministries across Lincoln and Lincolnshire together for unity, to build the kingdom, for young people to meet each other and recognise that they're not alone in this, that God's behind them, but also build that unity. And we know the Bible says, when people come together, pray and worship His name, like things get done. And actually, in the last couple of years, the unity has been building, and we are seeing things good in this city. So I think we're very privileged to be a part of that. And my role is just to organise it to happen, I guess, to get churches together, send those messages out, coordinate things. We're really privileged, I think, in this city to be able to work together and have churches and youth ministries that say, it's not about getting young people in our seats, it's about getting young people in the kingdom and hearing the word of God. I love that about this city. So yeah.
Phenomenal. And are you a Lincoln born and bred lad, or are you from outside?
Yeah, I am officially from outside. I was born in London in a place called Uxbridge. My old man was RAF before he got old and retired, bless him. So he was RAF Uxbridge, and then he got when I was a kid, he got moved across to Waddington. So I came across to Lincoln as a kid, and I've kind of been in Lincoln for all of secondary school, a bit of primary school, and that. And I've left and I've come back, and then I met my wife at university. I came back for university. I went to BG to get my teaching degree, and then I've sort of stayed in Lincoln since then, really.
Tremendous stuff.
Excellent. Should we get started with the questions?
Yeah, let's get stuck in. So tonight we're talking about how to pastor from a distance, and obviously we're in a place where we've got to be pastoring from a distance, social distancing measures. Even though we're seeing easing up and restrictions lifting in certain respects, we've still got a long way to go, I think, in terms of meeting on that personal level. And so I think we're still working out across the country, really, how we do that well. And so the first question we've got is, what's been the biggest challenge for you since moving online? What would you say has been... Okay, let's go for what's been a win and what's been something that you'd maybe not do again. Yeah,
so I guess the win for us, well, they kind of, actually, I'll be honest, they come together. So one of the things that we kind of went at this like sprinting from day one. We're like, right, we need to do stuff, we need to get content out there. And 10 weeks ago, actually, that's kind of what people wanted, young people wanted, because it was all different and it was all a bit crazy, and no one knew what was going on. So content at that time was great, but very quickly we realized that actually that shifted. Young people adapt quickly, and within a week or two they didn't need that sort of heavy level of content. They preferred something that was about connection. So something that went maybe didn't go amazing at first is that we were throwing stuff out, and some of it was hitting really hard and our young people were loving it, and it was really obvious with the views and the interactions, it was great, and some of it was just falling flat. And what we realized really quickly was that the stuff that fell flat was the stuff that didn't involve young people. Now, we have an amazing team, and I'm not saying anything negative about what they did, because what their content and what me and Nick and I were putting out there, it was good content, but actually young people connect better with their peers. That's got nothing to do with lockdown. It's just a fact. So we quickly changed the output to ensuring that that young people were at the centre of everything we put out there. So whether it was an Instagram video, whether it was an update on what's going on, whether it was our Friday night stuff, so we're doing stuff online, young people are central to what's actually going on and the content. And our interaction just went up because of that. So what was really important is that we learned really quickly. And in youth work, I think you have to keep adapting really quickly. So even now we're learning stuff that might not work. We might try a feature and quickly realise that it died and we never want to do that again. Whereas there's other things you go, oh wow, that works. So one of the things that we found works is we do food challenges, and essentially Nick and I just massively fail at them, and we're like retching and everything, and our young people absolutely love it. So we've kept that in and we're using it again. Where there are other things where, so we've done this feature called 2 Truths, 1 Lie, which was great for about 4 weeks, and then actually it's a little bit boring, or it's a little bit too normal or repetitive. So actually we've said, right, let's put that down and move on from it. I think all youth workers have to be prepared to let go of things they thought might be precious and move on from it. And just don't hold things too tightly. So that's kind of a win and like a learning curve all in one, I guess.
That's excellent. I think it's true for every single one of us that there's been a massive shift in the way we do youth work. I think there's maybe even a hesitancy to do online youth work for various reasons, some of those right, some of those perhaps wrong, but we've kind of been forced into it. But it's not just been the challenges we've been facing, there's been challenges that our young people have been facing and have changed over the last 10 weeks. How can we best equip our young people to manage themselves online?
Great. Yeah, I guess the most important part of that question is our role in that is to equip young people for them to manage themselves. It's not about us managing them or giving them step-by-step baby instructions with this, because young people know the internet and they know how to deal with online. They've been brought up with it, right? We weren't. I certainly wasn't. My primary school, there was that one computer in one room and that was it. These guys, they know the front and back of an iPad better than they know themselves some of the time. So for us, it's totally about saying, how do I ensure that the different young people I connect with have ownership over their own understanding of what they need to do and how they build their faith online. So equipping them, I think, is ensuring that we open up the right doors for them to walk through it. So, and what's really important is that looks really different for your 12 and 13-year-old youth than it does for your 17-year-old youth. So a sixth former who, or even a year 11, who's been in faith for a while, or even maybe not been in faith for a while, they've got a level of maturity where we can say to them, actually, you should already be at a place where you can sit and listen to content and understand, be listening to a 30-minute preach, reading your Bible, and we can be there for them. But really, they can do it on their own with maybe us kind of supporting them. A year 7, year 8 might not have that maturity in their faith, and actually they need to be a place where we're doing it and they're supporting us, or even maybe they're doing it but we're right alongside them, kind of giving them more. So that might be that actually they need to look at a 30-second clip and a little bit of a chat about that. It's the difference between maybe having a snack and a meal. But it's exactly the same with connect groups. I'm a big advocate of not doing one big connect group for your young people, because although sometimes that can be nice, and maybe sometimes you do it together, that's fine. But actually, your 18-year-old, what they need to be fed, online or offline, is very different to what your year 7, 8 needs to be fed. Our year 7, 8 connect groups have been full of cahoots non-stop with a really short bit of Bible stuff, still giving them good input, but less. Whereas our years 11, 12, 13 connect groups have all been about, okay, we're going to have a bit of fun, but then we're going to dig deeper. So yeah, I think equipping is saying actually what tools do they need to own it themselves, give them the ownership and allow them to sort of run with it.
That's excellent. Really good.
I think it's really poignant as well, because we've got a whole range of young people we can interact with online, and I think maybe you don't have any answers to this question, but how would you go about interacting with maybe some of those young people that for whatever reason can't access maybe your Zoom Connect groups or can't quite catch YouTube? Perhaps the home life's not great. Maybe there's no answers to that, but I don't know if you've had any insights in this season through that.
Yeah, it's really difficult to suddenly pick those things up. I think the more prepared you are for those sort of things, the easier it will be. So, for example, if we're thinking about young people that we already know and connect with, so let's say, okay, you've got a youth group and you've got year 7 and 8 that you already know, but you now can't connect with well online. One of the things you can do to prepare that is have good understanding of your safeguarding and the permissions that you've got. So for example, if you know you've got permission to talk to that year 7 via a text message, then you can do that, but you shouldn't do that if you don't have permissions, right? But in the same way, you can have permission. You can have permissions. You can talk to the parents about adding them on FIFA, on your PS4, or Xbox. There are quite a few young people in our ministry that I am not connecting with, but I know that our team are, because they're playing each other on FIFA or they're playing Fortnite together and they're doing that sort of thing. Because it's not just about saying they might not connect online. It might actually be that they just don't. Because we all know this, we've probably all been in a Zoom call where you've had 10 people and they are just sat there staring at you because they don't want to interact because it is awkward. But that same kid will scream down your ear because you're not in the right place on FIFA, and you can build a chat that way. So I think that's kind of two answers, I guess. It's looking at alternative ways, so whether that's online through FIFA, things like that. I think now looking forward, it's okay, are we allowed to create bubbles? And actually, are my most important bubbles those vulnerable young people or those people that wouldn't connect on the internet? So looking forward, there's that. And I guess looking back, in case maybe something like this happens again where everything has to be online, it's, well, actually, how do I get my safeguarding, my policies and my permissions in place that are really well, that enables me to make sure I can connect with all of my young people? Yeah. And actually, realistically, the simplest thing is there's a few times where I have gone round to a house when we were allowed to, obviously with all keeping the laws and things like that, ringing on doorbell and saying from 2 meters back, hey, how you doing? And doing that, or dropping off a can of Pepsi or dropping off some Haribos and just saying hello, or like little care packages, obviously, budgets and things like that. But I do think that a little hello and I'm thinking of you, or I remember you said that's more powerful than sometimes going and saying, here's what the Bible says. But that's still important. Like I'm not diminishing that at all. But people want to belong, and that is important. Often more so than trying to get them, because again, if that person, like I say, if we haven't connected with that person well, and then we're suddenly saying, hey, join this Bible study. If they don't feel like they're a part of the family, they're not going to want to join the Bible study. You've got to belong before you believe, sort of thing. So, there's lots of little things. But the key is you just got to know your young people, haven't you? And again, don't I'll say this a little bit later in sort of the things that we can put into action, but don't try and do it all by yourself. There are teenage boys and teenage girls in my youth group, in my ministry, that I am not going to click with perfectly, or I'm not going to connect with really well. So I don't need to, because actually, there might be someone that comes to me and says, I'm really into Fortnite, for example. And I'll be like, that's not my place. I do know this guy on our team or in our church that's really into that. I'm going to connect you there. And actually, that's not just an online thing. Actually, we do it at youth. Someone comes up to me and says, I'm really into cricket. I'm like, I don't know anything about cricket. This guy does though. And sometimes it can be little things. There's one person I connected with over our Zoom calls who wasn't coming to Connect Group. And I happened to put a meme in our Connect Group chat about the American Office. Yeah. And they love the American Office. So we had a little bit of conversation in the Connect Group about that, and that person's come ever since because they connected over the Office. So if you know young people and you make those connections, they'll come in the different ways that they do.
I love that as well, because it also means that you don't have to be the person that has the answer for everything.
Yeah.
As we went, no one expected it. No one expected us to minister in these new ways. and we are learning as we go, and you're not going to have the solution to every single problem. But I think
totally.
to work in team, as you said, Matt, I think that's really helpful.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we spoke a lot about online, spoke a little bit about offline, but we're here to fulfill the role of spiritual leader to our young people. How do we encourage them that balance between time online and time offline, particularly when they can only see their friends online at the moment? Where do spiritual practices apply in that? It's quite a big question.
Yeah, it's funny as well, because depending on who you talk to, what they think is an appropriate amount of online time will totally differ. So the best way I think I kind of look at it is I look at it at how I listen to music. So I always talk to my young people that my kind of standard for my personal life is I do this thing called the 80-20 rule. So for me, 80% of the music that goes in my ear is worship. 20% is whatever, is whatever I want to listen to, right? The reason I do that is it sets me up good for my life, that worship is the background to my life. Now, I'm not saying that I'm worshipping that all that time, but it's the background sort of theme tune to my life is worship. And that benefits me. So 80% of my music time is time that benefits me in spiritually. So in the same way, if we're thinking about my internet time, what am I doing on the internet? Now, it might be that Matt Lofts' internet time is 4 hours, and Julian's internet hour is 10 hours, and Libby's is 1 hour. Totally different argument as to whether how much time is right. But actually, it might be that I'm spending 4 hours of that time wasting my life, whereas Julian's spending 9 hours out of those 10 hours really spiritually benefiting his life. So it's not actually, for me, it's not necessarily, I mean, I think maybe 10 hours is excessive, but like, just an example. So actually, it's not necessarily about how much time we're online, because look, if we're telling ourselves that we want to try and bring teenagers' time down, we're kidding ourselves, right? Teenagers are going to be on the internet, but actually it's saying, hey, what is it you're doing online? Are you scrolling through Instagram and comparing yourself and bringing yourself down? Are you looking at stuff that's not beneficial to you? Are you binging Netflix too often? Or are you following Instagram accounts that are building you up? Are you looking at YouTube and maybe occasionally looking at preachers? Are you connecting to your friends online? Are you doing this on Connect Group? Those sort of things. So I think it's using the time we've got well.
No, that's very good. I think because this whole kind of season is a challenge, there is that sense in which we're ministering, we're working through that. Again, like dealing with pastoral issues across the internet, encouraging them how they spend their time. I think those have been really helpful. But I guess like the final question we want to touch upon is, where are we going after that? And some of that is unknown. Like nobody really knows when, or like what this will look like in a year's time. But what do you imagine, or what are some of the things you're preparing for, like pastoring post-COVID with young people?
Yeah, I think you kind of, again, you hit the nail with your question. It's that idea of that preparedness. I think we always have to prepare ourselves to not be prepared. So what I mean by that is, I think it's going to shift continuously. There's going to be and as lockdown changes, like the things we can do and the ways we can interact will continuously change. So from this week we're allowed to do bubbles in 6 people. So that might mean in 2 weeks' time we can start to do connect groups in a different way. But then in 6 weeks' time they might say, oh, well, you can do something different. And actually we have to be constantly on our toes, ready to adapt. I think we have to be teachable, we have to be adaptable at this time. So I think the biggest thing for youth pastors and team members is to say, actually, are you adaptable? Are you willing to change what you do at the drop of a hat to ensure young people do connect? Because again, if we hold on to things too tightly and try and stay in this section, we're going to find it difficult. But again, we also have to recognise that young people want different things. We can't box them in as all young people. So it's recognising that your ministry has to be wide to connect to those different people. Personally, I'll be really honest. I can't wait till we can meet again in a building, and I'm looking. Maybe it's far into the future, but I'm looking ahead to that point where we are in a room and Nick and I have got a microphone, and we say on that phone, on that microphone, "Welcome to Alive Youth. It's so good to have you back." And I think it's okay for us to be excited about that, but recognise there's going to be loads of different steps along the way. I don't have an exact answer to say, hey, this is going to happen, because we just don't know. But I do know that being adaptable and willing to change and try different things is what's going to help. But I think the biggest thing that will help with, alongside being adaptable with looking at where we go next, is also saying, well, what are the core things that you want to do as part of your ministry that mean that you are showing love to your young people, you are connecting with young people, and that you're glorifying God. Right. And that'll look differently for Bridge Church than it will to Alive or to St. Swithin's or anyone else, because we all have our own priorities. But it's saying actually what is the non-negotiable that we need. But whilst, and this is contradictory, while also saying, that might be a pillar, but we might have to shift that pillar.
True.
And I think that's the thing we're probably all learning, isn't it? That what matters most, I guess, because you're stripped back from your usual kind of working in ministry.
Yeah.
What we're left with is the high level of relationship, leadership ability, connection, all of those things. They're kind of like the core, really, the fellowship, to use that old-fashioned Christian word. And I think you're right in asking that question. We will go back to some sense of normal, but what are we going to take back with us? What will have changed? And I guess some of it is unknown, but I think we may have mentioned just before this session, like COVID's like a river. It's a torrent of water hitting us, and you can try and stand still, but you'll get swept away. The best thing you can do is get a paddle and try and navigate and steer and negotiate some of that. But I think
I think I was going to say, planning too far ahead within youth ministry, using that analogy, if we're saying, if I'm going to say to myself, right, I'm going to plan for what my ministry is doing in 6 months' time, with that analogy, what I'm doing is I'm trying to build a bridge whilst I'm in the river, and I'm going to drown. I'm going to get drowned. I'm going to get overwhelmed. Whereas that doesn't mean we shouldn't look ahead, but it means that we shouldn't be trying to put too many foundations to that thing ahead, when actually we're not prepared for the corner of the river in 2 months' time or 2 weeks' time. It's better to be looking ahead and saying, actually, what am I doing for my guys in the short to medium term, I guess.
That's it. And I think there'll be a number of youth pastors that watch this, that they're doing a similar thing. They're planning next month rather than 6 months. And I think that's the way we've got to go, that actually these next 4-8 weeks, this is probably where we'll be at, and we'll review that as we go. And that looks different for Lincoln, for Derby, Nottingham, and
totally.
Tuning in. But I think you've always got to ask that question first and foremost: where are my young people at, and how can I best serve them? How can I best minister? And that's always changeable, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess the only thing that we're more starting to look at is how, maybe we've been in a place in the last couple of weeks where it's like, we need to sort ourselves out right now, and then we need to maintain. Now, maybe we're starting to look outward a little bit more in the sense of how are we growing the kingdom now, which I think it's much more difficult in the sense of actually building those relationships. But I do think the invite is much easier at the moment. It's much easier to invite. So for example, my family aren't Christians, but I know that my mum's watched our Friday night stuff and some of our church services. But all I'm doing is texting and saying, hey, here's the link. So the invite's easier. So maybe the one thing I would say is we need to be planning for is how are we going to build those connections with new young people. And again, it looks different for different places. But again, I would say to anyone listening, your own young people need to be at the center of that, because no conversation I have with a 15-year-old is going to have any form of difference or impact to their life compared to their own mate who's already a Christian having that conversation.
That's very good, Matt. Thank you. Yeah.
That is excellent. Thank you so much for answering those questions with us. That's been really helpful for me, and I'm sure it's been really helpful for the people that are going to be watching this back as well.
Great.
And one of the things that we do each month when we have this is we ask our guests to come up with 4 things that you can put into action over the course of the next month. The idea being that perhaps you might want to do one of these items a week, or pick and choose the ones which apply best to your context. So
That's it, because you can get, I mean, there's a whole load of great advice Matt's given there, some gold nuggets, and the danger is you can feel overwhelmed with that information. Actually, I'd say pick one, and Matt's going to give us some helpful kind of 4 points to dig into it, and what's that one thing you can take away and apply as a youth pastor. So Matt, what are the 4 things you've got for us?
Great. Yeah, so some of these things I guess I've kind of mentioned a little bit anyway, because they are the things that I'm learning and applying to my practice to try and improve what we do. So yeah, you're right, this could be done 1 week, or it could just be applied to what you do. So the first thing, and I've definitely said this, is when you're planning, involve young people in every step of the way. I think if we're not doing that, that's something that's got to be implemented. You know, whether that's asking them for feedback, whether it's in the planning process, whether it's in the actual content process. If you're running a Connect group and you're the one talking the entire time, you're not doing it wrong, because that's not fair. But what I would say is you would engage young people better if the young people were leading and taking ownership of that as well. So I would say part of your planning process over the next, whenever you're doing that, sit down and say, actually, as part of my stuff, am I involving young people in this? If the answer is no, I think then start to ask yourself, well, how can I? Is it on Instagram? Is it in the planning process? Is it in leading something? Now, again, it might be that you don't have young people that are up for that at the moment. So actually, you can take that down a step and say, okay, so let's take the Connect group example. My young person isn't ready to do that by themselves yet. Well, actually, I can come alongside them and help lead them in it. And maybe me and that person can have a little Zoom call before Connect group, get some bullet points down, and then they can lead it in the actual Connect group. There's lots of little things we can do. So yeah, involve young people in every step of the way. The next thing I think, this is something again that I do, and this is nothing to do with COVID, this is something that I think we all need to do, is actively look and celebrate the small wins. I think it's really, really easy in youth ministry to get down and to almost like get disheartened because that thing didn't go well, or not enough people connected to that thing. And we're always striving for better. And when you're always striving for better, sometimes you forget to look at the celebrate things you're doing well. So I think it's really important for youth ministry, people involved in youth ministry, to sit down and say, actually, what can I celebrate? Now, sometimes that means looking at the long haul stuff. Because often you won't see the win in the immediate conversation. And actually, I got a text message yesterday of someone who is 21 years old now, and the message was saying, "Hey, in 2014, you wrote me this letter and you prayed this prayer over me, and it's done this. It's really encouraged me and stuff like that." And I was like, "That was amazing. That was a huge encouragement for me." But I've had to wait. That was 6-7 years ago. Yeah, so like we are planting those seeds, but we don't always see it. So look for the little wins. If a young person prays for the first time and they say 3 words and then amen, that's a win. Sit down, remind yourself that's a win. Or that person that only turns up, that rarely turned up, brilliant. Or one of your team members did something. Actively search for those things, because they will encourage you and then enable your ministry to be stronger and better, because you'll feel better about what you're doing and recognize that you're making progress. So yeah, actively look for and celebrate the wins. We mentioned this one, but again, I would, for anyone who feels like they're doing this by themselves, find the key people within your team or within your church that can connect with young people. What I mean by that is you might feel like there's no one on your team, but actually that means that our role is to build people into our team. There are people within your church that have the goal to step into that. We just haven't found it yet. I always think it's better to find people from within and build them up, build leaders up from within, than to try and pull people in from other places. And actually, we've all got that goal within our churches. And like we said earlier, you as an individual, me as an individual, I won't connect with all of my young people. But if I build a team that can, actually not only will they connect better, but they'll connect more effectively. So one of the things that we've done is we don't really call them mentors, they're just connection points. We've got everyone on my team and our youth team ministry connect with at least sort of 4 or 5 young people. Some of that might be regularly, might be mentor meetings, might just be on FIFA. Sometimes it's just odd Instagram message where they message their young people and they put our youth ministry in for accountability, and it's a little conversation on there. So it looks different for different people, but the point is I could not connect with all those people, but there are people that will. So make that happen. Fine, and that might be you sitting down in your work time and thinking, okay, who have I got? And I constantly remind myself that for myself and Nick, who works with me, building our team it's as important as building our young people, because actually building our team builds our young people even further. So find those. And the last thing, and this might be a little bit more long term, but I believe that professionalism opens doors. There is a bit of a chip on the shoulder of youth work, that it's a bit of a joke sometimes, and we're the guys that break things, and it's probably the youth's fault, and youth pastors are people that maybe couldn't do something else or whatever, and I know that's not true, and I think our bosses and the people that love us know that's not true. But actually, one of our roles is to connect with young people and connect with professional bodies such as schools, okay? And schools recognise professionalism. So I believe it's important. Actually, maybe some people have got a little bit more time in this season to get a qualification in youth work, to get a online counselling course, to get a level 3 safeguarding. Have those things in place so that when you go to a school and you're offering mentorship, I shouldn't say you're not just a youth worker, but you're not just a Christian, because that's the key. That's the bit that's iffy with schools. You're actually a qualified counsellor, or you're someone who has experience at dealing with anxiety issues. You're someone that is a qualified coach that could go and deal with 8 boys that maybe aren't coping so well with mainstream education. And actually, you're going in and you're offering something that lifts and engages the curriculum, that offers something extra in the curriculum that school wasn't offering. I've had conversations with people who work with special education needs children, and I'm not going to call this person out because they're a professional, but they were talking to me on the phone, and they were really talking down to me, like I didn't know what I was talking about, like I was just a youth worker. And I had to stop, at some point I stopped them and said, I just want you to know, like, I'm a primary school teacher and I've worked in schools for X amount of years, and I talked through, and then very literally she was silent for 30 seconds, and then her conversation completely changed, and her tone changed me. And then that's not fair, that's something, that's on her, to be fair, but it did make a difference. And actually, I think it is our role to elevate ourselves where possible, to be able to make ourselves more viable in the professional world, because actually those areas are areas we need to get into if we want to build the kingdom. And look, that could look differently for different people, but I do think safeguarding and first aid, if you haven't got those as part of your professional attire, like, get onto your line managers and say, hey, I need this. Risk assessment, you need to know how to risk assess. You can do youth work and youth ministry without those things, but they elevate you and what you do, if you have that sort of in your pocket, I guess. It's not like your frontline stuff, because your frontline stuff is relationships, is knowing God, is having a good relationship, is developing yourself spiritually. That's that is the frontline stuff. That's the most important stuff. But these other things at the back, they just lift those other things.
I love that as well. It's when I first started youth ministry, I was 18. And we had none of that. It was it was the wing it kind of season of youth ministry, and it's important that you can stay there. I love that whole kind of, we've got time to upskill and to do that, and to show people that you're serious as well. I think that's a really good point. What we'll do is we'll drop all of those into a little document you can download in the description. The idea being you can work through that as a little bit of a worksheet. It might help you focus. Also, in the link there, we've put Matt's kind of youth ministry that's connected to a live church. So we are live is right. We are a live youth. That'll be down in the description, along with the kind of that
forever links.
The forever links. Yes, my wife helped me. Thank you. And also, if you've watched this far, maybe you'll be up for liking and subscribing as well. There's a link to the website where you can sign up for the newsletter as well. We send out every month. And what we'll do is we'll break this down into little bite-sized chunks as well, so you can capture this video. It has been great having Matt with us. Genuinely appreciate you, mate. There's loads of gold in there.
It's great to connect.
And that's amazing. My name's Julian.
And my name's Lizzie.
It's been amazing. Thanks for having us. We want to thank Matt for those words of wisdom. If you want to like and subscribe to follow on for more conversations like this, also on the website we've got some downloadables for you to put some of those principles into action. Every month we're going to be bringing you a live interview with somebody who can bless us, inspire us, encourage us, and equip us to go deeper, live stronger, and be empowered. Thanks for watching.